Hello again and thanks for joining. So today we've got another model to have a look at. This is a rather cute looking 040 steam locomotive, but it is in this really tired Fleischmann box. The plastic at the front is very discoloured, it's got a tear in it here, and the rest of the box is looking pretty tired. At this end you can see the number is 4110 and it has a nice little diagram of the locomotive inside. You can see it's quite a cute looking 040 locomotive. So let's get this open and we'll take a look. So the model's held securely in this polystyrene tray and it looks really quite cute. Let's try and get this out and then we'll look at it close up. So what a cute looking locomotive this is. It did come with this additional coupling which looks as though it fits into a NEM pocket. It's one of the kind of knuckle couplings that you get on American locomotives, and I can see that it has another one at the back here on the tender. So starting at the front of the locomotive, we've got these lamps which just had a little bit of white paint added on to represent the glass. So they're not that great, but they're certainly quite impressive little lamps on the front of this locomotive. So the buffers are just integral into the main moulding, as is most of this locomotive. It's got these little steps here with some rivet detail, and the piston here is an extra part that's been added on. Looking further up here, we've got some detail on the front of this locomotive, really nice details of the front door on the boiler, and then we've got this really characterful chimney with this extra pipe on the back of it here, and that looks really quite cool as well, and there's a lot of depth to that chimney as well. While we're up here you can see that it has a moulding mark running the length of this part of the boiler. It doesn't seem to be so pronounced, and it doesn't go all the way along the top of the cab, which is great. But it is a bit of a shame that you can see that there. It probably needs a little bit of a tidy up. Down the side of the boiler, it's got some details moulded in. It's not mega deep relief here. This does seem like a bit of a budget model, but it's certainly got a lot of character to make up for its shortcomings in terms of detail there. The cab here has got a lot of rivet detail on it and it's obviously been painted green. There's no glazing on this model, but it does have a lot of nice graphics printed on here, including the name of this locomotive, Betty, which is really quite cool. Inside the cab there isn't any detail because you've got most of the motor showing there. It is a very small model, so that's to be expected. In between the cab and the tender there is some moulding detail here of the doors with some brackets and some rivet detail, so that's really nice that that's been included in here. And then the tender is a nice moulding as well. It's got the same green painted on as the locomotive, and you've got the black part up here with a fairly good representation of coal. I'm never a big fan of this moulded coal, but this looks not too bad, and you can see it also has some coming out there for the fireman to get busy with his shovel. It also has some more graphics here printed on, and these two parts are permanently coupled together with this drawbar here, so we can't get these apart at the moment, so I'm just having to be very careful as I go around this model. At the back of the tender you've got another pair of lights. This time they have silver on them instead of white, and you have this box which looks very impressive and it has a number of hatches on it. The buffers at this end look to be metal, but these ones have gone a little bit rusty, which is a shame. I guess it's just because of the age. And here we have this knuckle coupling which looks as though it's been just glued on top of the coupling that comes from the factory. But there's a fair degree of articulation there to keep this model coupled up with its train. You can also see on the surface of the tender it's got a lot of rivet detail as well, and another hatch here. The top of the cab, I've mentioned about the moulding line not being there, which is great, and it also has some nice rivet detail as well on the edges and also on this hatch in the middle. So looking down at the drive gear, it's got a very simple representation of a piston here and this connecting rod. It's actually quite crude. It's possibly given an indication of the age of this model. The flanges on the wheels are very pronounced, and you can see a screw there right in the middle, which is obviously holding something together on this model. Underneath you can see this stud here, so this has obviously been designed to run on 3-rail operation. You can see the gear here running on the back wheel, and the front wheel is just connected with the conrod and runs with it. There's one traction tyre fitted on this axle here. The other two wheels at the front don't have anything, and the one on this side doesn't have anything either. On the tender it's just got 2 axles, and it does look as though it picks up from these axles as well. You can just see the little metal plates there, which obviously is collecting power and running through the drawbar into the little locomotive. So I don't think this is going to have mega pulling power, but hopefully it'll run okay. I think we should maybe give it a try and see what happens. Okay, we've got it on the test track and the power is on. Fingers crossed this is going to work. Let's give it some juice and see what happens. Well, I think it needs a bit of a push. But wasn't that great? Betty needed a little bit of a push to get going, but once she got going, she went no problem at all. It's really great. I think this model's quite old. The box certainly looks old enough, but I didn't even have to oil it or anything, and it runs great. It's also quite a speedy little thing. I think it might actually give Smokey Joe a run for its money. It's quite highly geared, so you have to be careful with the power on this one. Anyway, let's see how much it weighs. So this locomotive weighs 179 grams. Well, this has turned out to be a really great model. What a characterful little engine this is. I'm really impressed how good it runs, but it certainly isn't geared prototypically because it absolutely flies when you put the power onto it. It is only a small 040, so I thought there might be some problems, especially on the ropey test track that I've got, but it didn't seem to have any problems at all, and it just went along quite nicely. There's a lot of character to this locomotive. I think it really brings a smile to your face when you see it. It certainly does to me, and I think this particular one could be improved just with a little paint on the back buffers, maybe sorting out the couplings as well, and possibly some weathering on the coal would really bring it to life. It's obviously got some limitations, like the motor is in the cab, so therefore you can't really have any cab detail, but you could add a couple of figures in here like a driver and a fireman if you just cut those figures just so that they'd fit around the motor inside the cab, and I think that would really enhance it as well. I'm not too sure about the lights either. I think I'd probably do something about them. So clearly there's some limitations on this model, but yeah, it's such a characterful little thing that I think it's really appealing. So should you consider buying Betty for yourself? If you're serious about your model railways, then perhaps this isn't the one for you because it does look a little bit toy-like, and that's possibly a lot to do with the actual prototype that this is based on. But it is a lot of fun, and I think you'll have a lot of enjoyment with this model, and certainly if you were exhibiting your layout and this came out, I'm sure it would raise a lot of smiles with your audience. So it is worth considering, especially because it's Fleischmann. I think you might get this quite cheap if you can find it. So I would recommend it if you want just a bit of fun. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of my analysis of this model, and if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps this channel grow. I'll put this on the turntable so you can see all the way around, but that's it for today. Thanks for watching. See ya!